Children of Dust is a memoir about my life. And the title of the book comes from the Quran, which from verse 61 in chapter 17, where Satan is actually mocking God for having created humanity from dust. I was born in Pakistan, and before I was even born, my parents actually promised me to Islam. Shortly after my birth, I was taken to the Kaaba in Mecca, which is in Saudi Arabia, and had my chest literally rubbed against the walls of the Kaaba. And that really is kind of the relationship that this book sort of traces, my relationship between my parents, myself, Islam, and being Pakistani and in the modern world. And so as I grew up, I lived in rural Pakistan, attending a madrasa in a desert area of Pakistan. And after we moved to the United States, I grew up in a fundamentalist sort of family in the American Bible Belt in Alabama. So that was an interesting conflict, coming from such a kind of severe environment in Pakistan and then moving to such a similar, but in a way kind of opposite environment in the American South. Eventually, I went back to Pakistan to sort of trace my history, had a weird sort of run-ins with a lot of the people that I used to know, including people that were spouting very pro-Taliban, militant rhetoric, and kind of antagonizing me about it, because now in their eyes I was an American. So eventually I came back to the US, and 9/11 occurred, and I again struggled with being a Muslim in this world where Islam was being so demonized, and at the same time where the country and being a Pakistani was such a controversial thing to be. I didn't write this as a informative book about Islam. I did not write this as a political book. I simply literally just wanted to write a story that chronicles as authentically, and quite often it was very embarrassing and difficult for me to open up about a lot of these things that have occurred, but that occurred in my life. But I really wanted to go ahead and put those out there without any editorializing. Just tell people a story of how a boy growing up in a conservative environment kind of goes through all these conflicts, goes through a number of strange and admittedly, weird encounters, but at the same time goes through a number of hilarious and, confusing struggles. So, it's not really geared towards Muslims per se, and it's not really geared towards non-Muslims. It's a literary investigation of one's kind of history. And in my case, that happens to be a devout and conservative environment, but with a lot of rebellion along the way.